sees that anyone else is trying to get in, you just got to let them in. You know, it's just got to
Did
be done.
you
What?
are you waiting for any money this month? Have I?
Goff, she's mentioned bloody money now, hasn't she?
Mm.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, got and the golden rule with these classes, right? And the golden rule with these and the
Yes,
golden rule, and
yes.
listen, right, can you just let me talk, right? The golden rule with these classes, right, is never mention money, right? I mentioned money. Now you've mentioned money. Yes, your monies will be due soon. So get it over.
Well, I've missed 2 weeks, but two and a
Well,
half
hang
weeks.
on a minute. That's not my fault, is it? Hang on a
No,
minute.
no.
And as you've mentioned it, right? It saves me next week, right? Mentioning it that the monies are due, right? So,
Where's
um,
Richard?
and I'm trying to say, right? The ball is in your court. When you want to pay the money for the next 2 months, right?
All right. Okay. Okay.
September and October, get the money in, right? And everyone
Yeah.
else will be happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm
Do you know
not
what?
going on holiday, so
Oh, all right then.
I've only had one 4-day holiday.
Me and Goff can milk this. I tell you what, Goff wants a sub of 50 quid. I want a sub of 50 quid. Henry wants a sub of 50 quid. Bang another 50 quid in there. We're happy. Instead of going on holiday, job done.
Gotta be
Right.
joking. Look, I got some
No,
interesting things to tell you.
oh, well, hang on. As long as it's not about money, right? We all want to hear it. Now go for it, Pat. Anne.
Well, I don't know if any of you have been to the Nangara China Pottery, China Museum. It's a lovely
I
cottage
can
there.
tell you a fact when you're finished. Go on.
17th century cottage that the owner, of the man who actually invented Nagaro China, porcelain China. Anyway, it's a lovely cottage and it's very authentic. It's got it's quite big, inside, so there's plenty of room. But a fascinating thing is that in the garden, they've got the old factory. They've got the old China factory. You know that, do you? Well, they've
No,
got,
is that the one where it's a big sort of rectangular building? That one.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's down. No, that's the pottery.
But that's what you just said.
No, the pottery on the side is pottery workshops. Those are where people go to do pottery and glass
Yeah.
using and things like that. But
Yeah.
at the back is a kiln, and
Oh, good.
a kiln. Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you like industrial archaeology,
Yeah.
there's a kiln, an old kiln, and another one they're building. So
Hang on a minute. How
it's
can they be building another one when it's an old kiln?
well, because I don't know. I'll have to find out what they're doing because there's
No, I think you should.
the remains of the factory.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all derelict,
Yeah. It's just
and
like
they've
me.
got a kiln which is derelict, and
Yeah.
those are the things that they want to restore.
Yeah.
So
And Henry's just sent me a message. He's really enjoying you talking about this. Um. Yeah,
is
that's good,
it?
Anne.
Oh no,
Yeah.
but actually, well, it is interesting. You can have
Mm,
bara breath and tea.
that's good.
It's very comfortable, very nice, and they've got like a museum upstairs and all the china examples of the china. But it only anyway. I won't go into that because I'd like you to go and see it.
Yeah,
But
I'm gonna. Well, me and Goff are gonna go and see it. Goff is paying, and I'll pay. I tell you what, Goff, you pay for entry, and I'll do the coffees and scones stuff. That makes it good. Yeah.
It's so
yeah, it's they do you a tour and that, but don't have a tour because you get in cheaper then. It's £5 to get in, I think. Or they might give you a tour. I'm not
I
quite
think
happy with all that, but
I think Doc should get the scones actually because I think I'm being done on this one. Um, and that was great. We all enjoyed
yeah,
that one. Loving it,
but it's like an oasis in a desert. If you
loving
can
it. Right,
find it, if you can
Anne,
find it, it's
yeah,
an oasis in a desert.
love it, love it. And I would say one fact about the Nantgaro potteries, right? One single fact about Nantgaro potteries, right, is that 90% of all Nantgaro's pottery was discarded because it had to be perfect.
I know, because it was, uh, yeah. I mean, that's the sad part about it, but it was so perfect. The
Yeah.
ones that were good were so perfect. They were bought by royalty, and they are worth very, very large amounts of money. And yes, it only went on for 4 years, but
Hang on a minute, only 4 years? I thought it was a lot longer than that.
no, it was 4 years, and then they went to over to using earthenware, and they
Um,
made tiles and pipes, water pipes, and useful stuff like that.
that's
And
cool. That's cool.
like lots of potteries. But I mean, I know we're spoilt down here because we've got like a row of potteries. But
Yeah.
up there, there's just this one pottery that was on the canal, and it's such a fascinating,
And it was unique.
right next to it, and it's dried
Yeah.
up, but it is, they got lots of history and maps and things, and it's really worth a visit anyway.
I tell you what, don't tell us anymore because we're all going to go and have a
Yeah,
look.
and all right.
Pat as
The
well.
other
Well, hang
thing
on,
is,
what's the other bit of news?
well, the
Don't
other
take up too
thing
much
is,
time. Go on.
and it's more industrial archaeology really, but a friend of mine, well, no, my niece, her husband is called Kavanagh. Is Reed Kavanagh or Kavanagh, whichever you want to call it, with a C.
Hmm.
And his brother went to Ireland recently, and
Yeah.
he said, "Why have all the manhole covers got Kavanagh, got my name on them?
Uh, C A.
Cavanagh.
I don't know. Why is that?
Well, it's because Henry knows. It's because there was an iron
The
foundry.
company that manufactures them.
Yeah, a company that
They were an
manufactured
iron
them called
foundry.
Kavanagh in Ireland, and they were
in,
cast
in
iron.
like 19th century iron
Hang on, why do
foundry.
you use 19th? You should be saying 1800s. We know where we are then. Right, cool.
Oh, so yeah, all right
Cool.
then.
And that's
Um,
good. Victorian
those
cabinet
manhole
makers,
covers,
cast iron, job done. Love it, Anne.
and it's they export mainly to America because there's the most cabanas anywhere in the world are in America.
Good, good. And those that information tonight has sealed my everything. Thank you for that, Anne. I'm loving it. And next time, Anne, right? Those two bits of news, right? Next time, don't leave it too late because we've just had a load of stuff off you then, and job done.
Oh
Thank you,
yeah,
Anne.
okay, sorry.
Thank you, Anne.
But I was
And by
just
the way,
excited.
Pat wants 50 quid as well, so that's another one. Right, okay then. Anyway, thanks for that, Anne. We gotta put Pat in there because she's a bit poor. Right, Goff, anything you want to say?
No, I've got no news at all. Thank you. No.
Sure. Cheers, Anne. Henry.
Paleontologists dig in the Cotswolds,
The where?
Ah, yeah, the mammoths.
the mammoth
Yes.
and the human or not humanoid bones.
Oh,
Yeah. The Homo sapien Neanderthal. Yeah. We did that last night, and we're going to do a little bit in a moment. Right. So yeah, thank you for that, Henry. Yes, you are correct. Cool. And who else is it? Pat, anything you want to tell us?
Well, I did look on my computer and found the a piece of glass Roman glass in Rome. They discovered while they were digging the station and the subway.
Yeah.
And this year they're going to put this piece of glass, which has inlaid gold,
Huh?
face of a person.
What?
And they're going to put that along with a lot of other small finds in a small museum in the station, at the museum, at
Hold on
the
a minute.
train station, at the subway station. Yes.
Yeah, I've been there.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. You can't just right. So is it? What's the headlines? Because we got to see the images of this gold.
Oh, right. Well, I don't know if I still have it.
Right. Glass. Okay, if I put in glass and gold, Italian subway, will that do it?
I should probably do it, yeah.
Right. Okay. Good. Anything else, Pat? Because we're going to go straight on
Nope,
to.
that's it. That's it.
Right. Okay. We're going to go straight on to mammoths. Right. Right. So here we go. And sorted. And there's my baldric.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
the only reason people come on is to see the image of Baldric every week. That's what it is. Right. So we and Pat, we're going to give this a go. We're going to do your bit first. I don't know who the hell this is. Right. Somebody's going to have to let Richard on. Glass and gold. Glass and gold. Italian subway. Okay. Well, I might have to come back off here to let glass and gold Italian set. No, ancient golden glass and earth. That's the one, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah.
Roman subway.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna have to go back out to try and get thingamajig in. Right. Hang on a minute. Right. Okay. Right. So if we go to there and we get Richard in. Right. So if we go back. Oh, I managed to do it. Right. That's good. Right.
Okay.
So we're going to do that one now. So right, so have we got an image of this? Hang on. Is there right, okay. So they're doing all this subway stuff, right? So oh hang on. No, hell's that? Accept. Right. Oh, there it is. That bit of
Yeah,
glass.
that's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right, so hang on. If we go to there, we can see if we can get a better image. Oh no, maybe not. No, maybe not. Maybe not. If I do a different article, maybe I can read it all.
But the
Hang on.
museum is supposed to open this year. Little
Right there.
small museum.
A golden glass artifact depicting the personification of Roma.
Oh,
There it is. It's going to come up. So gold glass Roma discovered. Allow. Okay. And there it is.
Ah,
So that's a bit of glass, which has actually got gold inlay, right?
Yeah, that's it. And they'll have
Absolutely
a
brilliant.
old little museum with a few other bits and pieces at the station, which I thought was interesting.
oh, this is
So-
all the rage now doing this.
Yeah.
You won't have any museums anymore. We'll just have little glass cabinets with bits and pieces in, you know.
Well, no, that's the way to go.
Museums now.
That is the way to go. Can you remember that find in Colchester not so long ago where they found a bit of mosaic outside the subway? And you can actually go
Look,
there and whilst you're getting the subway and you can
Yeah.
So a little bit more about this. I don't know how far that we are. I'm consenting to everything. Okay. There it is again. A little bit of news. Rome Metro subway. It is the first time that any representation of Roma in gold glass has ever been found. And obviously Pat's telling us about a museum. So there it is. Right. So the next thing I want us to do now is I want us to look at if we can get mammoth. Oh, there we go, Cotswolds. And this is a nice, interesting one.
Oh,
So
we've got those.
yeah, so here we go. Neanderthal tools, mammoths, and new species at excavation.
Oh,
Now, Anne, these are not archaeologists, right? They are paleontologists.
yeah.
Paleontologists. They're not archaeologists, they're paleontologists, right? Which is basically an archaeologist that's little bit more qualified, and they got weird beards. And this article's really interesting. Actually, the people in this article are interesting. That's what we did last night. So there's 200 volunteers uncovered a mammoth skulls and a tusk. 700 meters long, 7 foot long, massive, over 2 meter long tusk, and evidence of Neanderthals who dated precisely to 160 million years ago on the 14th of October at 5:15. So the site at Kearney Wick in the Cotswolds, right, was first mentioned on an Attenborough documentary a few years back. But they've decided that they've done more excavation work at this site now, Mammoth Graveyard, and this is the last time the team will be able to excavate at the site, because they're going to fill it in and it's going to be a pond, which is in fact and if there's anything left there, it's not going to be a problem, because a year's time they could drain the pond and find the rest. But anyway, new species to science, and they found something there, as it says there, dating back 160 million years ago, right? So the Neanderthals were looking at in the hundreds of thousands of years ago, the Neanderthals, but they found a fossil, right, 160 million years old, which we're going to talk about, right? And there's the archaeologist, and the man of your dreams. There he is. He's got a hat, you know, and he's showing a piece of Neanderthal flint. So basically,
so they were everywhere.
Neanderthal flint is very interesting in the way it's created, and you can probably work out Neanderthal flint from 214,000 years ago on the 15th of September at 12:15, and then obviously you've got this fossil which is being found below it, right? So there we go. That's a Mr. Mason. There he is with a cravat on. Ideal man for you, Anne. So before the site was excavated, experts questioned whether evidence of Neanderthals would be discovered, and there they have. They found Neanderthal remains dated back to 214,000 years ago alongside these flints. The fact that we're getting these artifacts in the same layer that we're finding these bones that have been carbon dated is telling us there were people around. We just need to find a skeleton next, and that would be absolutely brilliant. So these are lots of the artifacts that they've been finding: mammoth bones, and obviously, you know, alongside the Neanderthal artifacts, is absolutely brilliant. So the bones of other types of elephant, aside from mammoth, have been found too, and some bones, such as those of Ice Age horses, and the statue of Lloyd George. These Ice Age horse bones show gnaw marks from hyenas. So Sally and Neville Hollingworth, right, first noticed the significance of this 8 years ago, and obviously it was part of an episode associated with David Attenborough. So yeah, David Attenborough does do other things other than just botany. And one thing that David Attenborough is fascinated by fossils as well, and he is nearly 100 years old, Anne.
Yeah,
amazing. So we've got Tuscan skull, and they've also got little ammonites there. That's an ammonite in the screen. They're finding that type of stuff. Jurassic fossils, and the next guy looks very, very interesting. A
paleontology.
Yeah, that's the one. Paleontologist, right? This is what a paleontologist looks like. He's going to come up on the screen in a minute. So if this guy is the guy finding these things, right? And that is what a paleontologist looks like.
Well, you know, they spent a lot of time.
And he looks a bit like your husband. So anyway, apparently they usually wear helmets and they have little bits of white stuff. I can't really understand that, but that's what a paleontologist looks like. And they found the remains of a plesiosaur, right? And that's Richard Forrest, if you want to look him up. So Mr. Forrest said we found a monster here, a baby plesiosaur, and a baby plesiosaur was a massive 2 meters long, Anne. And basically, to give you a description, it's a long neck, a thing in the middle, and a long tail. That's what a plesiosaur is, and it describes it here. It's like a snake threaded through a turtle. they effectively flew for underwater with 2 sets of flippers. No animal has hit that formula ever again. So what they're doing, so what they've got, they had very long necks, and the rock has parts of the bone sticking out. So he's gonna, he's gonna get in there, right? That's what he's doing. And he's gonna be using a little miniature drill, like an air pen. They work at a minute level. I'll do a lot of this under a microscope, and I gotta be honest with you, right? These images of these people are so interesting, right? Why does that guy need his name on the front of his hat? Yeah, and don't go there. Just leave it. We know that's Eric Downey, Eric Downey Jr. So basically, they got these university volunteers from 20 universities, and we've been really lucky that we're a great big group of very enthusiastic volunteers and researchers. That was the first bone. And the idea that the Hollingworths were wandering along this one day in the quarry, and they found a little bit of bone sticking out, and lo and behold, it was this bloody thing. And there it is, David Attenborough holding that. You couldn't club anybody over the head with that, Anne.
No.
Massive mammoth. So Attenborough and the Mammoth Graveyard, and actually, if you click onto this BBC link, you can see David Attenborough talking about this. If you type this in, there's a link there, which we're not going to do now. And a few geologists as well. So paleontologists, you've got geologists, archaeologists, and people with long beards. You getting his hands dirty there. This is the cream of the cream. This is the greatest discovery ever to be made in Britain ever. And every volunteer has been part of this. And I've got to be honest with you, these 2 guys, right? Really interesting, right? These 2 guys, right? They've actually got that's King Mammoth there on the left, and that's Mammoth Queen. You can't make this story up, right? You just can't. I tell you what, these guys involved in finding all this are so unique. It's unbelievable. It's like a miniature time team. So there we go. So they're doing the work before it's turned into a pond. Mr. Hollingworth, he goes, everything here will be locked away back into its very own time capsule. Well, hang on, we get to see this on display. The incredible journey. This site has held so many fabulous memories. It's not just about the dig. It's passing on that legacy for the future. The end. So I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I'm glad you've enjoyed the lecture today, and we'll see you all next week. Right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do some other stuff now, right? A bit of a mixed match. Oh, by the way, I was washing my clothes in the bath today, right? And after 4 baths, right, nothing had changed colour.
Was the water cold?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's why.
Why is that? That's why.
Well, it didn't really, what do you mean? It's just,
But anyway,
it's still dirty.
there's my latest profile picture. Anyway, so and there's something else that you don't want to know about, right? So the next bit is a Bélanger la route along La Plaine Square, right? And what it is, right? I just, when we think about back to the Roman Britain stuff, and then we do a bit in Orkney, and then we do a bit in sort of somewhere else, and we do a few other things tonight, so a bit all over the place, which is fine. You like a bit all over the place. By the way, this is like a miniature conference of archaeology every week. I thought I'd tell you that. It's great.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It's a great thing. You're the only voice you hear is me, but then when you talk, Anne, and tell us all about the Nantgarrow potteries, we're that's the only other reason.
Bit confused.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, look, the thing is, right, I wanted to say this, right, that in many ways we expect to see Roman archaeology, with the big Great Walls, all over the shop, right? But they're not, right? Lots of the Roman archaeology across the Roman Empire is actually hidden under the ground. When I did my course with the University of Leicester, not University of Highlands and Islands, my first course, we were we were looking at sort of Roman archaeology in actually Italy, right? And lots of Roman archaeology in Italy is actually hidden as well. It's, you know, it's under the surface. It's not to be seen.
Well, you,
And they're doing lots of field work like we do in this country.
well,
Now,
you,
this oh, what?
you were the one who told us about Rome. You said that it was all dug up because it was all under the medieval.
Hang on a minute, and I said Italy, not Rome.
Oh,
And I wish you would listen sometimes. Anyway, it's Pat, because Anne's missed these classes for the past 2 weeks, right? We can't show her up, but that's fine. So me and Anne should have one of those little conferences. And if you'd have come to my live show, I could have had you up on stage.
yeah,
You know?
with a broken wrist. Anyway,
Oh, all
Still
right.
be
it's not
there.
broke anymore. Well,
You'd still be there, Anne.
yeah.
Goff, Henry, don't give us any ideas, love. Just please. Right. Anyway, like, Anne, I was making a point, right? I was making a point, even in Italy, right, and Gaul, all over the shop. Most of the Roman remains are under the surface. Even though the Romans left us lots of brilliant Roman remains, like the Temple in Nîmes, or the Pont de Gare in France, or even the Colosseum, right, or even Hadrian's Wall. You know, I would say 90% of all Roman archaeology is under the surface, hidden, and much of it will never be found. And in probably every 10 years in Britain, we find a brand new Roman town in Britain, right? Which is really odd, when in fact you think all Roman towns have been found, and they haven't. Even the walls have been taken down, you know. But the point is, this is and the facts about Roman archaeology are changing all the time. So, you know, one minute, oh, there was never a Roman town here, so therefore the natives left themselves to themselves in wherever, Dorset or whatever. And the next minute, somebody's going around, they found a Roman town. Oh, we know the Romans were there, right? And the same thing can be said about West Wales, because this is this is a site which is near Aberystwyth. This is a Roman villa that was found in 2006, and the Roman villa is actually there, right? It looks like a little square, but under more LiDAR definition. I'll show you what it looks like in a few moments, right? You know, so the history of Rome is changing all the time. So up until one point, you know, people used to sit down and say, the Romans didn't conquer the whole of Cymru Wales, didn't they? Didn't, because there's no villas anywhere, right? Oh, we found one in Aberystwyth. Oh, we found one in Langston. Oh, we find them in the Vale of Glamorgan. Oh, there's some, and then you start to think, oh, right, the picture of Roman Britain is completely different from what we thought one week to another, right? So all its assumption stuff is really dangerous, you know. Constantly when I'm doing stuff about the Romans, say on YouTube, right, I always get people saying, oh, you know, the Silures in South Wales really resisted the Romans, and my answer is, well, first of all, they weren't called Silures, and the second, they didn't call themselves Silures, the Romans did. And the next thing I say, well, if they were fighting all the time, where's the evidence? Oh, the Roman historians tell us. Well, do they? No, actually, they don't. And then you start to look at the reality that you know, most of Wales was a very, very peaceable you know, occupation, right? So this is a Roman villa, which is, we'll do this in detail in the future. I'm just making a point tonight. There's my bath again. And obviously, if this is when we looked at the image before, we'll swap this around, right, to sort of give you a little bit of raison d'etre on the Dudar Firkins that we had there. So there we go. So that puts it in position. So basically, when they've done LiDAR, right? So the aerial photography, you know, showed us the ditches and stuff and a little bit of an outline of the building. And lo and behold, that's what the building looks like in West Wales. It's just great. We're finding these things, and the amazing thing with archaeology is that we cannot ever be fixed in history, right? We can't ever fix things in history. Proper job. You know, one thing I mention a lot is that in 1535 there was a rebellion in Cymru Wales, right? And nobody talks about it, and they say, oh, it was Owain Glyndŵr the last rebellion in Cymru Wales, but it wasn't. It was in 1536. And then people say, oh, you know, the last time people had an uprising in Britain was actually the Chartists, you know, in 1839. And then I say, actually, that's incorrect, because in the 1920s in Tonopandi, there was an armed revolt of miners who were held at bay by an army led by no less than Winston Churchill, right? So in other words, when we you can't always take history for even history, right? Even history, you can't always take history as being read, because sometimes things come out of the
Right.
closet, and history is grey, and you could argue that the last rebellion in Britain was actually in 1984 with a miners' strike. People died in that miners' strike, people got beaten up, people went to
Yeah.
prison, and all the rest of it. So we history is more fluid than we were told at school. For example, like tonight, I'm going to look at the Dacians, right? And I'm going to tell you about the Dacians in Romania and Bulgaria. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them, but I'm not going to tell you the other names of the Dacians. I'll leave you to look that up, because sometimes there's only so much we can look at. Right. So again, this is getting a little bit of a picture, a little bit of an idea of that Roman archaeology that we've just seen, because that farm there is that there, and they did a little bit of a trench to get an idea of the site, which is great. You get the local children in from the local school. Now, usually, I was told, oh, this is really interesting. We had somebody on last night, but they've got one of their grandchildren lives in Spain, right? And they said actually in Spain they learn about Alexander the Great. They learn about loads of different bits of history that we're not taught in our schools,
Yeah.
and it's like other people are more accessible to our history. When I went to school, I spent the best of 4 years learning about Adolf Hitler, the Second World War, Mussolini, um, and I just thought, well, yeah, I learned about the Chartists, and I learned about John Frost, and I learned about the Peterloo massacre in 1819. Yeah, I learned about that, but I didn't learn about Alexander the Great. And this is the thing, and actually, like this, getting children to go into the field gives them a more investigative mind. What is actually under the surface? So it's not just about what you're told in school about humps and bumps in the Iron Age and Hadrian's Wall. There's stuff under the surface, right? And this itself links me to this, right? This is, you might think, hang on, right, we're supposed to be doing Roman stuff, but yeah, I'm trying to get you to look at history a little bit more objectively and subjectively, and try to get you sort of thinking a little bit more. And this is actually a field in Montgomeryshire, right? And you'd think that that was snow. It's not. It's lime that's spread on a field, and there are 3 trees there, and there's nothing else. So when you think about the Tim Ingold stuff, you think, oh, there's a bit of a wall over there, and that's a certain date, and there's a tree there of a certain date, and there's a bank and a ditch there of a certain date. It's all sort of intermingled and all the rest of it. But when you get a situation like this, you're thinking, hang on, yeah, by the way, I think 2 of those are actually oak trees and the other one's elm. I'm not exactly sure, but they're probably both. Anyway, the point is, you're thinking, well, there is a story there. It's a flat landscape. It's been made flat. Right. Oh, and by the way, last night I told them all the story about my car. Right. I was driving along last week. Right. And I was driving back from doing a film shoot, and on the Friday I was just about to go to hospital, and I heard a thump in my engine. I was driving along. I thought there's something not quite right with this. But anyway, I phoned the garage and I said I'd bring it in on Friday. Right. And I took it in on Friday, and they said, "Did you realise your engine was actually hanging out of your car?" And I said, "You what?" And he said, "If you'd have gone along the motorway, the engine would have come out, your car would have tipped over, you'd be dead." Right. What had happened, right? And this is directly linked to this image, right? What had happened, I'd been in a film shoot a week before, and because I've got a small Peugeot 306, the engine's held in place by an arm, which is held in by 3 bolts. So basically the guy said, "Can you tell?" And by the way, they managed to fix these 3 bolts. The engine was fine, right? It only knocked the sump a little bit. I had to have a little bit of an arm on one of the on the offside sorted, and that was it. So I was really lucky. Apparently, I was really lucky. Anyway, the point is, I when I went to a film shoot, I drove across a field at speed, right? Because I thought it was flat, and suddenly I hit these humps and bumps of a ridge and furrow agricultural system, and my car went bump, 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 and it went clunk and bump, bump, and I thought there's something not quite right there. That's what did it. But there's no ridge and furrow on this image, and the point is that there is still stuff that we can learn from those three trees: aerial photography, and by archaeological excavation, and by maps and all the other stuff that I don't know if Richard's joined us tonight, but Richard knows full well a book that we're actually coming to the end of completing now, which is so great. We use a lot of map stuff in it, and we refer to map stuff. So an old map, you'd see bumps and boundaries and stuff, and those trees would be part of that. And all of that is happening because in the 1840s there was something called the model farm, basically model farm. So what they did, they ripped up farms and hedges and they made open fields in Lincolnshire and other places like this, and this took over. So this was a model farm. People were expected, and I did work on a model farm, didn't I, Anne? I did Boverton Mill Barns. I did it twice, and the model farm work down there. Yes, so that's good. So now this is a rather interesting one, right? So we're doing a load of stuff tonight, and as I say, guys, I'm probably going to have to finish by 8:45. So what we'll probably do, we'll have an earlier break. We'll look at this and we'll look at the Dacians, right? Give you a little bit of love for the Dacians. Oh, I got to mention something in Orkney as well. Loads happening tonight. So now this is rather interesting. This is the Thracians, and the Dacians are directly linked to the Thracians, right? So that's really good. And the Scythians, remember the Scythians, Thracians, Dacians. Now this is the thing, you see. The Dacians tell a different story about Rome, right? That's why we're doing it. Romania, Bulgaria, that type of area, that little bit of chunk over to Istanbul, that type of area, north of Greece. Job done. And basically, it's said that the Dacians went all the way up to the Transylvanian mountains as well, that type of area. So anyway, so the point is with all of this is that it's sort of digging and dwelling into history, and also we've got a little bit of an update on Pompeii as well, which is absolute fab. So I'll read this to you. So in Bulgaria, right, Romania, Bulgaria, so it's the Thracians and the Dacians and all the rest of it. This itself, and I tell you what, right, as an image that was published on the internet, right, look at that. Look at the detail. Human remains on the left. Loads of pottery there. He's got a sort of some silver work there, copper work and stuff. And there's a horse alongside him there. Now, we can't always say that the horse was poleaxed or killed for this. The horse may already been dead, because horses were really valuable. So you might put an old nag in there. But anyway, the point is with all of this is that a Thracian grave. And we know the Thracians were very rich people, and this grave probably takes us to a point that this was sort of linking in with the world around it, the sort of ever-growing ancient Rome. So richly adorned Thracian warrior was unearthed in Bulgaria at a village, we all know it well, at Topolograd. We all know it well, Topolograd. I've been there on holiday, love it. Anne's been there as well. And they found it there, and they've been excavating there, lots of graves and stuff. This is what we're finding in Bulgaria, that they're finding lots of these things. Problem is, I think they've outlawed this, but there was lots of these graves and stuff in fields, and this was back in the 2000s. And farmers had adapted a plough, which was, I think, 2 foot. It was a ploughshare that was going 2 foot deep, and it would deliberately hit these graves, and somebody would be behind them picking up all the gold and silver and stuff, right? They've outlawed that now, but there was massive destruction about 2 decades ago. So that's been outlawed. And the other thing as well is there's lots of these things. And Bulgaria, in a way, it's so rich in archaeology, like Romania and some of those other places that way, that they're still finding all this stuff. It's very, very much linked to the likes of Vagina. in the old Macedonia, not modern Macedonia, the old Macedonia of the Macedons, i.e. Alexander the Great, Philip II. So they've got lots of burials there, but this is a square grave, typical Bulgarian grave from the Thracians. So they've excavated other things here, and this is a part of a necropolis landscape, necropolis of the dead, not a hypogeum landscape that we'll be looking at with the Etruscans next week. The Etruscans hypogeums, where you go down steps underground, get the word hypogeums. We call them necropolises when we look at the Etruscans in Tuscany, northern Italy. But the point is, this is a necropolis. So obviously, this is where all those dead people used to live. So so again, thinking about this, and unfortunately, like last night, like tonight, I could have got more images, but I didn't. So I'm going to allow you to look at this yourselves. Anyway, the tomb recently discovered by the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences is particularly noteworthy because it's intact, it's unlooted, there's all the stuff in there. And at the time of dating this, and looking at this, we've only got a date range of the guy there between 30 and 45. Haven't been precisely dated yet, but it will be. Now, one thing, I haven't got an image of this, but they found a gilded, silver wreath, gilded gold, gilded, silver wreath that was placed on the guy's head. Who else also wore wreaths? The Romans and the Greeks. Lots of people did.
Yeah.
And they found evidence of glass, ceramic vases, and various jewelry, and lots of bronze fittings, such as this. No, it isn't a sexual scene. Basically, what that is, it's a bronze plate depicting Heracles defeating the giant Antaeus. And this is again, something they found lots of things like this. Shame I haven't got more of images like this. But you can look this up. I'm sure you get more. And it's a mythological scene where you've got Antaeus, who's a giant, who's actually the son of Poseidon and Gaia. And Hercules, also decided to kill the son of Poseidon and Gaia, making Hercules very unpopular with the pantheon of gods in the area. And note, Heracles, right? You'd think that's a Greek god, but it's actually a god associated with the Thracians as well. And there's a few other things to be found there. Another grave found approximately about the AD 200s. You can look that one up yourselves. So I felt, well, it was absolutely fascinating looking at this and sort of getting that sort of another bit of civilization. And again, I'm mentioning the Scythians. Oh yeah, I'll give you a little bit about this, right? And Anne, I don't know if it was you, Anne, who said that, museums, they won't need museums anymore because they'll have museums in the streets and stuff and underground. And that's how they should be, accessible for everybody to see. That little bit of a museum where you've got a bit of a mosaic outside the subway in Colchester, that's going to be great. A bit of a glass thing. You see a bit of mosaic. Don't need to be moved to the museum, and you don't need to pay to see in a museum. It's going to be there. It's not going to be moved. And back in the 1980s, I don't know if anyone were lucky enough for this. In 1988, I went to see the Russian hologram exhibition in York, right? And instead of taking the artifacts around from Russia, right, which are obviously similar burial artifacts like this, right? Instead of taking the artifacts around the world, these were holograms, right? And this was a great hologram display. It was like a room full of holograms, and you'd look and you could see all around an artifact, but the artifacts weren't there. But they don't do that anymore, right? It would be great to have hologram museums traveling around the world like the Russian holograms did, but I don't know what's happened, right? So we've got this technology for everybody to see things. That's the whole point of the British Museum, for example. The British Museum has a little bit of stuff from Australia, has a little bit of stuff from Siberia, a little bit of stuff from Italy, North America, Russian hologram exhibition was great, and it links me directly with this stuff. It really, really does. Now, let's calm down a little bit, please. This is really, really interesting, and they found some really, really interesting finds in for example, associated with the Maya. They found evidence of Neanderthal cannibalism, and this headlines. Some of Pompeii's residents returned home after Vesuvius eruption. Why is that big news? Well, it is. It is. Let's not show you any image a minute. Let's just keep this in our mind, right? Now, I like to think that if we'd done the work properly at the excavations at the amphitheatre at Clean back in the 1920s, when Sir Mortimer Wheeler was excavating it, right, we could have revealed evidence of the early medieval period. You know, whether it was to do with King Arthur or some other king, it would have been great. But we'll never know. Sir Mortimer Wheeler was being paid by the Times newspaper to get results and photographs in the newspaper basically daily. And they basically wanted to see the floor of the amphitheatre. So basically they dug down to it as fast as they could, right? Destroying all the evidence along the way. It's the same point. It's the same thing as what was going on with the likes of some archaeologists working in North Africa. When North Africa was opening up after the Italians had lost Libya, archaeologists were actually going to excavate in North Africa, and they would be finding beautiful Roman temples, and they would say, "We want to find a Greek temple." So they used to blow these Roman temples up, right? And then they would think, "Oh, there's not much of the Greek temple left, is there? They can't put it back together anymore." That's exactly the same as this, because for me, these headlines are massive, right? They're massive on another level. There we go. When I used to look at Pompeii, for example, I used to teach about Pompeii and stuff, you know. And my youngsters, and I used to do something through the pandemic. I used to group of youngsters, and we used to talk about Pompeii and stuff, and people sealed there forever. Nobody ever went back. That's what I used to tell them. Yeah? And I used to say that the first time that we ever found Pompeii it was rediscovered in the 1750s. Man, there was actually some people working there in the late 1600s, and the King of Naples is blamed for digging getting people to dig holes, getting loads of copper and bronze statues out and brass, melting it all down and sort of making coins, right? And making, the Kingdom of Naples rich and, but in fact, we can't all blame it on the King of Naples. People did indeed go back to this site weeks after the eruption of Vesuvius, and I think that's absolutely changes the ball game. Do you know what I said at the beginning? The ball game completely changes a lot in history and archaeology, and it's never fixed. All the events going on now around the world with all these wars, right? They're going to be talking about them in a different way, right? We've seen it, we've been there, right? And I've got intelligence material associated with the Iraq War that I shouldn't have, but one day I might sort of publish that stuff out there, right? But it tells a completely different story to do with the Iraq War, right? But that's new history. This is old history, and we're still learning that the old history that we thought we knew is completely different. So Pompeii, Italy, Mount Vesuvius, 12 o'clock, Pompeii, on the 24th of August, AD 79, 2 o'clock, no Pompeii. It famously buried Roman towns around the Bay of Naples, Aplontus, Stabe, Heracleum, the likes of Pompeii itself, and lots of Roman villas that we will never know ever existed because they're under 20 foot of debris. We can't be digging around the whole landscape. So 20 feet of ash, particularly at Heracleum. But one thing that nobody talks about is the roofs of some of the buildings were still sticking out of the volcanic ash. I kid you not. Many of Pompeii's estimated 20,000 residents perished, or did they? Because some archaeologists are actually starting to question this, whether, whether everybody died. And I know Henry just sent me some images, which I'm sure I will use next week, Henry. So that's very kind of you, Henry, because Henry's recently been there. So while the rest fled their homes, seemingly never to return, lots did. And we're getting this in the archaeological evidence now. Now, I'll mention this in a short while. You might be watching an episode of Doctor Who, and David Tennant saves a family in his TARDIS from the eruption of Pompeii. He saves a certain Peter Capaldi who ended up being Doctor Who, but it's made out in that Doctor Who episode that nobody survives, right? You can't save this family, right? But Doctor Who goes back and saves a family, right? The only family, right? But now we know it wasn't the only family. There were lots of families that actually did go back and did survive. There's another article to do with this. I think, have we got more? Yeah, it's to do with that word "have," right? Which means ciao, which means welcome, goodbye, have. That's a word that the people of Pompeii use to say welcome. It's a word that mainly only people of Pompeii, and we've seen that being used in other Roman towns and cities after the eruption of Pompeii, indicating that lots of families did survive, because that is a Pompeii word. So so one of the things with this, it's like, it's the long held belief that nobody survived. It's a long held belief that nobody went back, but they did. We'll only stand to find this out now simply because, yes, the Naples diggers destroyed all the stuff on the surface, removing the evidence that people ever went back there. Because people who went back to live there, they would have lived in the top part of their houses, right? Or they would have just squatted in other people's homes, right? But we know that they lived on elsewhere. The other interesting thing as well is this, and I'm gonna talk about myself, right? If obviously my family went back and we're quite a poor family, right? And the top of our roofs were sticking out, I would think, hang on, there's a neighbor next door, right? He had a lot of gold, right? I would have dug down into my building, got into the basement, quarried a tunnel underneath the ground, and I'd have gone into their house, and I would have taken the bronze. I'm sure we would have all done it. I'm sure, because they're not going to be wanting it anymore because they're dead, right? So I think lots of people would become very wealthy, but that's all blamed on the King of Naples, right? All those little tunnels that we find underground because of later excavations, we'd say it was the King of Naples doing it. It wasn't. Lots of that evidence was probably these guys, they're going to make their lot a lot better. They wouldn't have lived in Pompeii for a massive amount of time. But then again, I'm wrong, because there's evidence to say that people lived at Pompeii up to 300 years later, but they may have habited the remains of people who'd gone back and whatever, right? So living in the top stories of these buildings, right? So recent excavations during a restoration project in the Insula Meridionalis, basically an insula is basically an area of, it's like a sort of tower block area, right? It's basically, it's when an insula is formed by four roads, so the stuff in the middle is an insula, then it's a grid plan of a Roman town. They're known as insula, insula or insulae plural. So they've uncovered evidence that small groups of inhabitants occupy the top floors of houses that remain visible above the layers of ash, while the former ground floors were converted into cellars with ovens and mills. These people lived in an informal settlement situation without the benefits of organisation infrastructure characterized characteristic of official Roman towns. Basically, Pompeii was written off. You know, you think about in insurance, people were insured as well, right? So this would have all been written off. You've lost your home, right? We'll pay out, right? So it's an insurance job, right? But these people who went back had their cake and ate it if they were so lucky to survive. So until Pompeii was completely abandoned by AD 400, we don't think of that. Pompeii was obviously abandoned in AD 79. It's not true because people did go back. So earlier excavators were often expressly interested in reaching the floors that contain many of Pompeii's buried treasures, such as mosaics, frescoes, statues, and even playing around with plaster casts, as we did the other week. Because of this focus, they frequently ignored and even destroyed archaeological evidence of post-eruption occupation. Thanks to the new excavations, the picture is now clearer. And the new director, known as Dr. Zucker-Tregel, the Director General of the Archaeological Park of Pompeii. Post AD 79, Pompeii re-emerges more than a city, a precarious and grey agglomeration, a kind of camp, a favela that you might find in places like Brazil, among the still recognizable ruins of Pompeii that once was. So this is really, really interesting stuff, and you know, this paints a picture of a world that we thought was fixed. So it's fixed history, right? It's a given. Nobody ever went back, but they did, because now we're finding the evidence, and so much has changed. So you know, it could be, right, we might be looking into the Pompeii's library for documents that may have actually been removed by people a long time ago, right? So we might never find the lost rare pages of the work of Herodotus or Plato, because somebody had already taken them 1,900 years ago. So and that. So this is the other evidence, you know, that I'll talk about this. So entry mosaic, house of fauna, right? So this is a word, as I've mentioned, but you find this in other towns and cities around Naples. And there is another fact with all of this, right? Not only did people survive, the government, the Roman government, built new towns and cities for the people who had been spared death at the hands of Vesuvius. Suddenly what happens, this is the point, suddenly after AD 79, new towns and cities spring up everywhere. Why is that? That's because people survived. So it's not the worst case. Well, obviously dying is like quite terrible, right? Because you're dead, right? But not a large chunk of people didn't die, right? And that is a point. Thousands of people perished, yeah, no doubt, but not as many. But many Pompeians managed to flee the city and the volcano's blast zone. The people who weren't so lucky were people of Heracleum, which was west of Pompeii, that were hit by pyroclastic flows, lava, and the gases and all the rest of it. So, you know, that's something. And there's something else that actually, did you know you'd have thermal shock? Nobody tells you that, right? You also have thermal shock, right? So when there's this great sort of blast, you not only get the gases, but you have a thermal shock. So there's a sound wave, right? And you start that hit that could do your eardrums, right? It would certainly blow your nose, right? There would be, you know, blood would spurt out your nose, so you'd be shocked. You'd be standing there thinking, I can't hear, right? And I don't know if thermal shock is going to blind you, but it's going to knock out your nerves and all the rest of it. So there's something else that's happening to people. That's going to it's disaster at Heracleum, but it's not at Pompeii. So for 30 years, you know, 30 years, the question of where these survivors went has intrigued an expert from Ohio University. One source of evidence he has explored is the existence of massive building projects undertaken by the Emperor Domitian. The Domitian was the new emperor, so if we want to look at the reign of Emperor Domitian, right? So Domitian, let's get some dates on this. The Domitian, right? So we can look at Domitian. Emperor Domitian reigned from AD 81 to AD 76. Now, interesting enough, that means that Domitian was dealing with the aftershock of Pompeii 2 years later in his reign, right? So the point is with all of this is that the Romans can't be said to be completely ignoring their people. They did something to help their people. So there were apparently Domitian got the coffers, and there were massive building projects 2, 3, 4 years after Vesuvius. And there was new work at Roman foundation of Cumaea, Naples, Portello, whole neighborhoods, suburbs, roads, aqueducts, water systems, amphitheaters. All of the infrastructure for an urban community was poured into these communities on the Bay of Naples by the imperial government. They didn't do it north of Rome. They didn't do it east of Rome, right? This is all new stuff. Why there? Because the Roman state is supporting people who've lost their homes, which, okay, I've tried to stay away from being political, but it would be a bit like, oh no, I'm not going to say it. But you know, there's various different wars around the world, right? It'd be like somebody saying, right, we're going to build you new houses now, new towns. You've been displaced. That's what's happening. So to trace the relocation of individual survivors to these and other towns in the area, this expert from Ohio University scoured inscriptions from pre-eruption Pompeii for distinct Roman family names. He then identified these same names in inscriptions in communities where refugees may have moved after AD 79. As this expert says, he has concluded that survivors seem to have resettled in cities where they had social and economic opportunities provided by Emperor Domitian and the state. This is like a Roman, I don't know, oh God, not healthcare. Oh, what am I bloody thinking? A Roman state. This is like Roman social security. Yeah, you know, Roman social security. They're looking after people. This is amazing, right? So they've identified inscriptions where the refugees have basically said, "Oh, we've come here after the Pompeii eruption and we've been given a house." Great. So it's concluded that survivors seem to have resettled in cities where they had social and economic opportunities rather than where their blood relatives lived. So in other words, they didn't just move to where their relatives were, they moved to new towns and cities provided by the Roman state. This still, many Pompeian survivors maintain ties to their city in their new communities, particularly through marriage. So Pompeians would just marry Pompeians. So there's enough Pompeians to be around that they decided to marry their own kind. And this is what they would put on their thresholds of their new homes, which meant ciao. As you know, ciao is an Italian word which means hi and goodbye at the same time. There's one inscription that's associated with a house in Naples that says, "To the spirits of the dead, farewell, Vetia Sabina, you who lived ever so well. Marcus Tullius Dionysus, to his dearest wife, who lived 24 years, 3 months, and 22 days. And where did they come from? They originated from Pompeii. They then ended up living in Naples. Tullius as Sabinus, the male version of Sabina, are well-known Pompeian family names. So in other words, Pompeii has a really set sect of names and language, right? Obviously, they're speaking Latin, but they've got their own way of doing things. So this inscription also contains the only known example from Naples of the word have, H-A-V, which basically, as you know, means farewell and greetings. A word that in the Oscan language of Pompeii's pre-Roman settlers means both greetings and farewell. I thought this was great to see this. Now, I'm gonna take a break now, but I do have to be heading back because not yet. Obviously, we're gonna have a 10-minute break and then we're going to be back on and we'll be finished by 9. So let's do Anne, if you've got a question, keep it simple. Anne, anything you want to say?
Oh no, I
That'll
just
do,
think-
Anne. Goff.
No questions at the moment, thank you.
Yeah, you see, Goff is so easygoing. We love him. Well, Goff knows I love him, but that's a personal thing. Henry.
No, no questions. All good.
And Anne fell for the trap earlier on. You can work it out. There's a guy married to Jessica G. Rection. We'll leave it there. Richard.
No, nothing for me. Brilliant, guys.
And Anne fell straight for it. She actually said the name of the guy. Right, Pat?
No, thank you. Just good stuff.
Good. Right. So we're going to, as I say, 10 minutes. We'll be back at 25 minutes past 8 and we'll be sort of carry on for about another 25 minutes and we'll finish. So we'll be back soon, folks. Talk. We'll be back.
Ah, oh,
And get your ding-a-ling.
oh, oh! I didn't mean to phone. Did she phone me? Well, we don't like video calls. My niece doesn't like video calls. Nor me. Oh dear. Better go and get some coffee.
I'm Joe Cooper from livingonadime.com. One of the biggest challenges you're going to face in your life is how to fold a fitted sheet. So today
What the?
I'll show you how to do.
What? What the fuck was that? I think there was something going dodgy on there.
Sounds right.
I think somebody was watching a porn movie then. Can you ever remember those porn movies from the 1970s?
The ones you were
Look, Goff. Look, that's just making an allegation, Goff. You know, that's not necessarily right.
I do remember them. Debbie does Dallas.
I tell you what, they were just so they were so badly filmed. You couldn't even see what was going on. I don't see what the point was.
We weren't really looking at the artistic content, were we?
Well, I did. Yeah, it's all about the art, you know it is. Right, I'm just gonna have a drink of this. We're gonna get started again. Hang on. You know, I'm most put out these days because they started doing Shamrock milkshakes at McDonald's, and they don't do them anymore. You know, not that anyone wants to know that. Oh, have you seen the new Naked Gun yet, Goff?
No, I haven't got around to that. No, I don't know whether it's on, is it?
Hang on,
It might not be on in Bridgend yet.
all right. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it. Leslie Nielsen's homage to whatever. Anyway, so right, okay. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing a minute. You know what, you look at Anne and it throws you. Okay, there you go. Right, I just wanted to do something light now. For the last bit. So I've mentioned this site in Orkney a few times. And we've just gone back to it because they're doing more archaeological excavations, and it's a site which is located called on an island known as South Ronnersley, right? So so you've got mainland Scotland there, and that there. I've been there, and basically South Ronnersley is joined to the big part of the island by what's called a Churchill barrier, which is made up of loads of sunken First World War German vessels. Anyway, so we're looking at South Ronnersley, and basically they've been having an excavation there, and it's absolutely fascinating what they've been finding. Martin Carruthers, who's the archaeologist who worked for the University of Highlands and Islands. He was my lecturer. They started working on this site in 2003, and they've got permission off the landowners and so on, and they've been working there continually, seasonally, and they've been taking the archaeology slowly down bit by bit. They're finding archaeology here, not just from the Iron Age period, but they're finding Roman archaeology here as well, Roman pottery that they're actually finding, and which is absolutely brilliant. And it shows that there's a link between this site in Orkney and the Roman world in the south, which is great. And so we're looking at this site, the main Brock structure, because that's what it is. A Brock is 21 meters across in diameter. It's a circular building, and all these other buildings here are actually little parts of the village. So there it is. Really nice image there. So we've got this sort of circular building there. And what we've got sort of a village in front with drainage and sort of part of the housing. And again, just wanted to just do this briefly, just sort of tell you that this is a world that is so linked, in sort of embodied in the Roman era as much as the Roman era is embodied in the Iron Age. local and things far away, and it's really nice and textured that they're finding these sort of subtle links with the outside world. And obviously it goes to sort of make the point that um there's archaeological evidence that have come from the Iron Age that we find it on Roman era sites in the south. So obviously, there's going to be stuff that these people have produced that are going to be in southern England, where there's stuff from southern England here in sort of Orkney. And these are two little glass beads, and these little glass beads would have come from the Roman world, maybe somewhere in the Mediterranean. They're not as pure as the glass beads that would be made in the Levant and Egypt. However, you could tell that these are tiny little beads, and because that is the hand of somebody, the texture of somebody's hand there. So they're really small. I've got to be honest with you, it's not an archaeologist's hands because it's so clean. However, right, finding these little beads, and they found 12 of these little beads over the site so far. And I can remember when I was at the University of Highlands and Islands, there was this guy who was undertaking a survey of metallurgical signatures across the site. So we know that in this bauxite, yeah, within those circular walls, within the bauxite, they're manufacturing copper objects. They're doing a bit of smelting of sort of bronze, and I think they managed to get the temperatures up in there as well for the likes of iron. So metallurgical evidence is loads of stuff there, for pottery, bones, so on and so on. So maybe we'll get an update on this further on later on in the year when I get the magazine from Society of Scottish Antiquaries, and I'll just update you on that.
Good.
Now, what I thought is I wanted to give you a part of a world that said up yours to Rome and was very successful. And I just wanted to be as crude as that. Rome was not the be all and end all massive conqueror. They may have defeated Hannibal and the Carthaginians. They may have defeated the Greeks. They may have defeated the Gauls. They may have Vercingetorix. They may have defeated some Germanic tribes. But as we know, the Germanic tribes wiped out Varus's legions in the Teutoburg Forest in AD 9. So the cracks are starting to appear in this mighty Roman world. Were the Romans so amazing that they could not be defeated? No, they weren't. They weren't as amazing that they can't be defeated. When we looked last week, the Jews gave the Romans a good run for their money in the middle part of the 100s. Hadrian was in trouble really against the Jews. He lost basically the best parts of 3 Roman legions out of 12 that he sent in to Judea. Even the 9th Legion disappeared. So I wanted to sort of give you a little bit more texture. This is really brief about the dations, but I will have a little bit more time next week, and we will be looking. Oh, that's it. That's it for the lecture today. Goodbye. That's it. No, next week, a little bit more to go. Next week, the Etruscans, we're going to be looking at their art and stuff, the Hypogeums underground. It was under popular request. That's what we're doing next week. And the Etruscans, a little bit more about them. But these people, these nations didn't roll over like most of the British tribes did. They didn't roll over like well, I'm not saying the Carthaginians did, but the Greeks did. So the point is that these are people who said no. These were people located in an area near the Carpathian Mountains, Romania, Bulgaria, butt arse against the Black Sea. These are people that are told in a story, the Arch of Constantine in Rome. The Arch of Constantine in Rome was erected within the reign and before the death of Constantine the Great, who died in AD 337. This is erected in Rome. At that stage, Rome is starting to be a place where, they've decided that the new city is going to be Byzantium, which is modern day Istanbul, right? They've decided that. right? And all of that there, right? All of the writing there would be leadened. Obviously, the lead is no longer there. But we've got these statues on the Arch of Constantine. Arch of Constantine is probably the biggest, last great thing that they made in Rome. Before they started moving all the treasures from the Roman world to, it was then known as Byzantium, and then known as Constantinople after Emperor Constantine. There you go, Constantinople. But what we've got this sort of tribute arch, and this tribute arch, again, dates. This tribute arch was erected 50 years after the Dacians had, in effect, defeated the Romans. And the Romans did a homage to the Dacians in their city of Rome. Can you believe that, right? Yeah, this is not like the Romans that we're usually meant to hearing, you know? These really respected the Dacians because the Dacians defeated the Romans. Well, the Romans did defeat the Dacians, but the Dacians did defeat the Romans as well. So, you know, the Dacians eventually won. You know, they won the game. Yeah. So what we've got the Dacians here, and we've got the Black Say. We've got Thracia. Around, so the Thracian is the Scythians, you know, and so on. We've got the Scythians in the mind. There you go. These people, the Thracians, the Dacians, Scythians. Macedonia there. You got a little bit south there. You've got sort of Vagina there. Now that's another thing. Modern day Macedonia is nothing to do with the Macedonia of where it is now, right? Even though the flag of the modern day Macedonians is an emblem that was found on the chest in the tomb of Philip II that was excavated the Vagina in Macedonia. There's a pointless fact, right? You wanted to know that one. But so these Dacians, they were more linked to people from Iran, right, than they were linked to people in Greece, right? They spoke an Indo-European language, right? With the twangs and backgrounds of a language that comes from Iran and Afghanistan and India. So these are really different people, you know, they are. And there's a subgroup of the Thracians. Now, this is all good, and this is all proper stuff. So Romania, Moldova, Bulgaria, in fact, the Dacians probably spread as a people all the way to modern day Poland, right? A Dacian language, which, to be honest with you, the Dacian language as a language, an Indo-European language, what we've got from the Dacian language is poorly documented because not much of it survived. You know, we do have a number of inscriptions that have survived, but only fragmentary. There's only one full inscription that survived with enough information that we can get an idea. The Dacian names for a number of medicinal plants and herbs may survive in ancient literary texts, including about 60 plant names, which were written down by Dioscorides, who was a Greek writer. About 1,150 personal names have actually survived, and maybe 100 Dacian words have made it into the into modern times, and 20 odd Dacian terms can be actually found in modern language. But unfortunately, language wise, unlike the Etruscans, even though these people survived, the Romans, you know, we don't really have what we get from when we think about the likes of the Etruscans. So again, you're thinking this is actually this is a Roman monument now, right? Roman monument commemorating the Battle of Adamsclisi, clearly shows two giant Dacian warriors wielding two-handed phalanxes, which is basically a two-handed sword. There you go. There, you've got to wear it with, you've got to hold it with two hands, basically. This is a beast. But the Romans are sort of, you know, commemorating these people, and they did that with the column of Emperor Trajan, right? It's almost as if they really respected these people because they stood up to Rome. They
Mhm.
stood up to Rome. They kept standing up to Rome. Unlike Carthage, who was defeated, unlike Greece, that was defeated, they stood up to Rome, right? Obviously, the Jews were defeated, but they kept coming back. But the Dacians were really different, right? So we know about the Dacians from the works of Herodotus dating back to the 450s, a Greek historian, right? And we know that the Roman Julius Caesar writes about the Dacians, right? So, 50 odd BC. We got Strabo writing about the Romans. We've also got Pliny the Elder. There's a link with Pompey. Pliny the Elder, AD 79, he died with his fleet trying to save people from Stabae, and his body was found on the beach. But there's Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder wrote about these people. So it's a lot to be said about these, and there's so much to be said. And I just give a little bit of an overview of these people to give you something else, because I'm hearing week after week now. I didn't hear about them. I know a little bit about them. This is what I'm trying to do. So when we do look at the Romans deeply and we look at Britain, we now starting to understand them. And when you hear the word Dacian auxiliaries used in the Roman army. So when the Rome managed to conquer a little bit of Dacia, right, there were Dacian auxiliaries in the Roman army. So you know where these people come from, Romania, sort of Bulgaria. So you've got that sort of little bit of history as we're starting to go through these things. And now last week we learned that the 9th Legion didn't disappear in Scotland, it disappeared against Judea. So this is why I'm doing these things. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm telling you, I'm teaching this, and I want to give you more information about all these other things. So in 53 BC, Julius Caesar stated that the Dacian territory was on the eastern border of the Hercynian forest. Strabo wrote about this. And what we've got is that Gaetia, right, is this is a map. According to Herodotus. So Herodotus knows about the Dacians. Back then, the Dacians were known as the Gaetia people, right? So this is the world to Herodotus, 450 years BC, right? That's all there was, right? Yeah, and a little bit of Asia. But we see lots of stuff by Herodotus and the Gaetians and the Thracians, and there we go, the Scythians sort of come in, right? Obviously, yeah, Scythians are like coming in. I probably maybe gave you the impressions that the Scythians were in the area of the Thracians, but they're sort of in the Black Sea area. So there we got the Scythians. Want to correct that, sorry. So again, these people standing out. They're really standing out. They're really wanting to be on the map because they're being recorded on the map, right? So this is another point where you find the likes of the Dacians are really starting to come into the world. Gaetia, the area mentioned by name by Herodotus in 450. The Dacians are really starting to develop as an Iron Age people of great renown alongside the Thracians. And they were great adversaries of this sort of world of the Celts, right? Obviously, it says the Celts there simply because everybody outside Greece and Rome were called Celts. So there we go. So again, when we think about the Dacians, we think about the raven totem and the helmet, and we think about this sort of representation, and we think about this world, and we're looking at the Dacians having a sense of identity. But when you think about it, a raven, and you start to think, hang on a minute, that's sort of a bit Germanic like, isn't it? So again, there's little links, and it had these rounded helmets, obviously without the raven. And so this is rather interesting. I'm going to take you what happened is that all of this area here, right? Sort of the orange stuff, the yellow stuff, is actually Roman territory, right? But the Dacian territory is partly under Roman control, but the rest of it is independent, right? And at one stage, the Dacians decided they'd had enough of the Romans. They wanted their territory back, and they decided to take on the Romans. They decided to take on the bloody Romans. Who does that? The Persians do that. Maybe we might do that another week, but so So again, thinking about all of this, and we're thinking about, you know, why did the Romans ever want to take on the Dacians in the first place? Because there was loads of gold there, right? They wanted the Dacians gold, right? They wanted the silver and gold mines of Transylvania, because the Roman world, by the end of the reign of Marcus Aurelius in AD 180, is in trouble, right? They need money, and they need to get this from people like the Dacians, right? But you know, they'd already been into Dacian territory in the reign of Emperor Trajan. The Romans managed to conquer a little bit of Dacian territory under the reign of Emperor Trajan in 117. This is why we've got Trajan's column in Rome. The Dacians themselves, we'll go back to, hang on a minute, where the bloody hell? The Dacians themselves had money known as the koson, right? And look at these coins. These are coins about 50 years BC. Look at that there. You know, the Dacians with their own coins, and again, this guy known as Burebista, right? The Romans wanted to capture Dacian territory, and Burebista said no. You know, this is we're going to keep hold of our territory, and I don't care how many countries the Romans have conquered, right? It's not going to happen, right? So with all of this being said, right, this Burebista guy, right, back in 82 BC, when Rome was just really starting to look about conquering the world, right, the Dacians didn't have any of it, right? So what's really happening on this map here? Emperor Trajan basically conquers that area of Dacia there, right? The bit that in black that says Dacia, but Dacia, bits of Dacia are not conquered by the Romans, because the Romans can't conquer it all. They come to some kind of peace treaty, and the Dacians said, "Oh, you can have this territory. We'll keep our territory." The Romans really didn't do that. If they wanted to conquer a territory, they would do it. But the Dacians had their own way of thinking, their own way of wanting to be sort of independent and sort of into their own world. There was this great leader against Trajan, and remember Trajan died in AD 117. So before AD 117, there was this leader of the Dacians that were defeating the Romans. The Romans would defeat them, called Decebalus. But unfortunately, Decebalus was eventually defeated by Emperor Trajan, right? But only years later, the Dacians decide to grab all their territory back. So the Romans don't have it their own way all the time. And these statues on the Arch of Constantine in the center of Rome, absolutely beautiful. You know, these statues and these little hoods on them. Look at those. Oh, they haven't got a hood on there, but hang on a minute. Where's these little caps on them? There we go. Hang on a minute. There's a little cap on the top of that guy's head there with a little bird on top of it. But this arch itself, with these 8 marble statues of Dacian warriors surmounting the Arch of Constantinople, tells us that the Romans not only revered these people, but feared these people. And eventually in 275, in the reign of Emperor Aurelian, the Romans basically say, right, you can have your territory back. We can't be bothered fighting you anymore. You're just too much hassle. But back in the Trajans column, when the Romans did manage to defeat the Trajans, you know, and managed to get some of their territory, they built this massive column, which was basically mainly about the Romans conquering a bit of Dacian territory. You know, Dacians had compasses, chisels, and knives, just like the Romans did. And this is a votive stelae, right, with the typical Dacian cap, right? And you see this cap, it's like a little bit of a hood with a little bit of a thing in front, like a little bit of that's a snood, right? Tiny little bit of a snood in front. My turkey's got a snood, but that's a tiny snood in front there. And again, this is a little bit of a stelae, you know, Dacian stelae, and basically this is Dacians were seen as being giants. There's obviously a giant. This is another giant Dacian there. The Dacians recorded their world. What we find of the Dacian world is recorded in Greek and Latin, by the Dacians on as shown on this piece of Dacian pottery, which has Greek and Latin letters as prescribed by a Dacian potter. And Dacian women, as described, and Dacian women had these little caps as well, sometimes with a little snood on. But this is a description from the wonderful 1800s. So we've got to 8:50. I'm going to ask if there's any questions and promise that we'll be doing more next week, and we will be doing the Etruscans next week. And as I say, I need to get back. So let's find out if there's any questions. Anne, any questions from you, darling?
No, I just thinking that the little tick thing on the hats might be like they used to wear. Well, they do now wear like
Jewelry.
tails, like just something
Ah,
different.
right, in the front. Yeah,
Just something
yeah.
different. Yeah, it
Yeah.
only makes them look taller as well.
Exactly. They makes you look taller. Exactly. Well, not like some of those. They're massively tall. The Romans thought they were tall as well. This is the same area of the legends associated with the Amazons. The Amazon women, the tall women that fought. This is that sort of area. So people were tall and seen as being tall. Right. Okay. Thanks for that. Anne, anything from you, Goff?
Yeah, I just think I'd like to find a bit more about the Dacians, so maybe we can do it in more depth sometime.
Yeah.
And actually, it might be, if I was to do that, it might be wise just to focus on. Actually, do you know what? If we focus on Trajan's column, right, and the Dacians, that would be a nice little link. So I'm doing a lot of Roman Dacians, why we've got the column, that campaign, and we look at the images on. Yeah, we're going to do that. That's coming up. I might do in 2 weeks, actually. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. We will do it. Thank you, Goff. Yep.
Okay.
Henry, anything you want to say?
No, actually, I agree with what Goff was asking. That's excellent.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will, and more about the Dacians and maybe the Scythians and the Thracians, but that would, yeah, maybe a little bit. The Scythian swords, and Thracians. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Henry. If you've nothing else, Henry, I will look at those images. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to look at them today because my WhatsApp decided to update. So there we go. Right. Okay.
You might recognise them.
Yeah. Okay. I will. I'll have a look at those. Good. Thank you for that, Henry. Anything from you, Pat? No, Pat, put your mic on. Matt, put your mic on. Go on.
Nope. My answer is no, nothing to report, nothing to ask. Okay. Sorry.
Good. Thank you for that, Pat. And I got to be honest with you. Thanks. And Richard's writing there, Richard Enos in capitals. That really makes you look very defined, Richard. It's a shame it can't be in Roman capitals. Richard, anything you want to say?
No, that's interesting.
Good.
And I agree
Well,
on looking up, they're sort of like a forgotten, all through sort of school, you push with the Greeks and the Romans and all these other nationalities and everything. Go by the board.
Exactly. I might have put in Sparta in there, but that's going a bit before. But maybe we might chuck in the Spartans as well and chuck in a bit of that. Okay, then. Anne, Goff, Pat, Richard, Henry, is there anything you want to say before we go?
Nope.
No, just have a good week.
Yeah, have a
I
good.
will. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Night, everyone. Night,
Take
Anne,
care.
Goff, Pat, Richard, Henry.
Bye.
Night. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
joining us. Night. Night, folks. Oh, we had all
Bye.
six
Bye.
tonight as well. That was good. Night.
Right, I'm off.
Night, Henry. Night.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I was going to
Bye.
say, oh yeah, you're going. Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Night, Anne. Bye-bye.
Be careful.
I will. I got a dash. Thank you, Anne.
Yeah. Ta-ra.
Night.
Oh, I've got to
Good end your end.
go.
Anyway, everyone, thanks for watching on online. Not that there's anything in the chat here, which is a shame. Thank you, Anna 1914. And see you all next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. And thanks for your support, and more to come in the week. And keep watching. Diolch yn fawr i chi, gwelwch chi eto ymor o hyd. Good night. Nothing there. 1, 2, 3.